Hey up everyone! So today's movie I'm discussing on the channel is the new action adventure thriller Twisters, which is a sequel, I guess, to the 1996 Jan de Bont film Twister, which starred Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. Yeah, a real staple of the 90s disaster subgenre of that film. And who did they manage to get to direct this sequel that nobody was really asking for? None other than Issac Chung. That's right, the man who gave us the tender, heartfelt Minari. Just trying to process that for a second. Yeah, Minari was one of those films that really charmed audiences, and it was a film that was very close to Issac Chung's heart. And yeah, got him 2 Oscar nominations as well for writing and direction. So yeah, he could have gone anywhere with his next project. I presumed he was going to make something similar to Minari, a simple story with a lot of emotion. And you know what? He did, but he just also happened to make a huge summer blockbuster franchise movie at the same time. And with Twisters, he's unleashing his inner Spielberg, and he does show a real knack for marrying spectacle with beautiful interpersonal character work. I'll say this about the first Twister movie, I liked it. Like, it was always one of those films that seemed to be on rotation on ITV2 on Saturday afternoons when I was a kid growing up. Like, you'd just be flicking through the channels and it would always like pop up on ITV2. So yeah, I've seen it several times, and I'll say that I do like it, but I don't have a lot of like die-hard nostalgia for the first Twister film. So when I found out they were making a sequel, I wasn't like overly excited for it, but then I heard the talent that was on board with Issac Chung directing, Joseph Kosinski, who did Top Gun Maverick, writing the script, and then an all-star cast of like hot talent right now with Glen, Powell, Daisy Edgar-Jones, and Anthony Ramos on board. So yeah, I was surely gonna go watch it. But yeah, I saw this film last night and it blew me away. And yes, pun very much intended. I may have liked Twister, but I really liked Twisters. I'm gonna say something I know not everyone's gonna agree with me, but I believe that Twisters is a better film than the first one. I personally just found it to be a more well-rounded film than the first one. I know the first film has some beloved performances from Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, and even Philip Seymour Hoffman, but I found the ensemble of characters in Twisters to be more likable. Like, I cared more about the characters in this film than I did with the first. And with the first film, I found the subplots involving like Bill and Miller's rivalry, as well as the love triangle that's between Bill, Joe, and Melissa, to be a little bit underbaked. Like, I just didn't really care about that stuff. I didn't have that problem though with Twisters. The story in this one by Joseph Kosinski is very lean, okay? He trims out all the fat, but he still manages to retain a certain 90s cheesy disaster film sensibilities into his writing. Kosinski has done for Twisters with what he managed to do for Top Gun Maverick, and that is that he's extrapolated what we loved from the first film, but also managed to craft a story that manages to stand on its own. Like, it helps if you've watched the first Twister movie, but you don't need to have watched it in order to get this film. There are little nods and ties to the previous film, but it's not relying on nostalgia or even legacy characters in order to tell the story. What we get with Twisters is a familiar plot, but it's fresh because all the characters are new. There's a beautiful fusion going on here because it does feel like a 90s movie that just happens to be set in modern time. And just like Top Gun Maverick, the dialogue is a little corny in places, but it totally works for a film like this. I actually really dug the slightly corny dialogue because you've got characters saying shit like, if you feel it, chase it, or if you don't face your fears, ride them. So yeah, it's just fun. I do wonder if Bill Paxton hadn't passed away, would they have tailored the script around his character, brought him back, maybe brought Helen Hunt back as well. But no, this time they're regenerating it with a younger, fresh face of hot Hollywood talent. And our protagonist in this film is a young meteorologist slash tornado chaser called Kate, who's played by Daisy Edgar-Jones. She is trying to conduct an experiment to essentially stop a tornado in its tracks by releasing chemicals into it to try and make the tornado collapse in on itself. Yep, science. Hi, have you met our friend Plausibility? We two should get together sometime. It's ridiculous, but you don't really care, okay? Because It's a movie and we're here for the fun of it. So yeah, at the start of the film, Kate is trying to prove her theory that she can stop a tornado essentially, but after a traumatic incident in the field, she puts that theory to rest for 5 years. That is until she's called up by her old friend Harvey, playing this film Anthony Ramos, who gets her back out working for this corporation to try and collect data on tornadoes so they can hopefully save more lives. They go back to Oklahoma, start chasing tornadoes, only to find that they've got competition from a self-proclaimed tornado wrangler and YouTuber called Tyler Owen, playing this film by Glen Powell, along with his merry team of misfits who are, chasing tornadoes for likes, clicks, and also to sell merch. Yeah, monetize that shit. Sparks begin to fly between Kate and Tyler, as well as buildings and buses, which are swirling around them in quite a windswept romance. So yeah, this film has a little bit of everything. Action, thrills, romance, or sexual tension at least, tragedy, comedy, and it balances all these different genres very well. Like I said before, I think it is a very well-rounded watch. But it takes a deft hand from a director to have a film where you're gawking at the action set pieces at one moment, but also really feeling the emotionality of the smaller, more tender moments in the next scene. And that is what Issac Chung has brought to the table with this Twisters sequel, okay? A lot of heart. When it comes to his direction, it is such a change of pace to what we saw in Minari, which was so still and calm, whereas this is so frenetic and chaotic. I really loved his camera work in this, okay? There's a lot of sweeping, majestic shots, a lot of bird's eye point of view shots with the drone cameras, and also there's a really cool hero shot where it's in the storm and it's 360 degrees, like a swirling vortex. We're really seeing a different side of Issac Chung here as a director, okay? He's really showing off his versatility because we know he can do the sweet, heartfelt family drama, but now he's proven he can also do the big epic action blockbusters as well. And I hope he gets to do more of these in the future. The performances in this were great, absolute dynamite pairing of Glen Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones. And I'm so glad the world is finally catching up to the fact that these two actors are bona fide movie stars. Anthony Ramos was good in this, but out of the named stars on the poster, I think he was probably the most shortchanged of the bunch. And this comes back to that whole 90s meeting the modern day thing that I was discussing before, but there's a tactileness to this film that I really appreciate. Nowadays, I feel like I'm looking at so much green screen and so much CGI that just feels a little hollow and a little glossy. And granted, obviously there's plenty of visual effects in this movie with the tornadoes, yes, but it's in the aftermath of the tornadoes, where you see the decimation of a small town. And you see, for real, how they built it. And, all these collapsed buildings and, the mise-en-scène is just covered in destroyed housing and flipped over cars. Seeing all that done for real, it adds something, adds a little bit more texture to the film. Excellent production design, but that's not the only department that's had a glow up with this franchise, because the music goes so hard in this. There's a beautiful scene with a dandelion with this melodic piano score, which almost feels out of place. This is a fun disaster film, but it feels so tender. But then, yeah, you've got the soundtrack littered with lots of country and bluegrass numbers, which just, really add to the whole Oklahoma feel of the film. And also the sound in this, oh my God, certain bits of this film, I was quivering in my seat because of how realistic the sound felt, when the tornado was getting closer, just wow. And coming back to the CGI and visual effects, this film really does look very good, very convincing. You're looking at CGI, but it looks very believable. Do I have any negatives to this film? I do think the corporation that Anthony Ramos's character Ravi could have done with a little bit more exploration. It kind of feels like they only just scratched the surface with that, but maybe they're just setting it up for what feels like will be an inevitable sequel. Also, the science in this has to be absolute codswallop in places, but I didn't care all that much, okay? I was having too much fun to question the validity of the science in it. But with these types of films, you're kind of required to leave your brain at the door, but even though it does require some suspension of disbelief, I still got on board with it. I just went with it and had a lot of fun with it. Has anybody tried to fire fireworks up an active tornado? Can it be done? Who knows? Let's ask the science guys. Do I think that Twisters might have some Oscars chances? Well, the first Twister movie did get nominations for visual effects and sound, and I could see a repeat of that here, okay? Because this movie absolutely hits you with the sound and the visual effects. Whether it can win is another question, okay? It's going up against Doom Part 2, okay? So that's a massive Goliath for even a tornado to try and beat. So yeah, I could see nominations in those categories, and if it were up to me, I'd also love to see a nomination for Benjamin Wallfish for the score. I actually thought the score went a lot harder than it needed to for a film like this, but I was here for it, you know? So yeah, while I'd like to see it in the conversation for best score, I don't think it will get the nom. Alright then, should we ask them 3 questions? Firstly, would I watch this again? Yeah, absolutely, I'd go watch this again. I'd even want to go see it in the cinema again, okay? This is a big screen movie, and I'd even add it to the collection someday as well, and that's coming from someone who doesn't even own a copy of the first Twister film. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Oh yeah, this is such an easy recommendation because this is a fun, pretty inoffensive summer blockbuster, okay? It's a popcorn movie, guys, okay? So if you like the first Twister film, if you like Top Gun Maverick, heck, if you even liked Minari, you will probably like this, okay? Because it's got the spectacle, it's got the heart, it's just a really, really fun watch. So yeah, I do recommend it. Go watch it in the cinema if you can. And third question, what score to give it out of 10? Twisters genuinely surprised me. Even though I know they had reputable talent on board for this film, I still didn't think it was going to be, you know, this good, okay? Like, not only is it a fun movie, it's a really good movie. Like, there's very little for me to criticize this film, okay? Every department showed up and did a great job, and I personally do think it is a better film than the 1996 one. So I'm gonna give Twisters a score of 8 out of 10, but as always guys, it is just one bloke's opinion. Want to hear from you. Have you seen Twisters? If you have, what do you make of this film? Is it better than the first film? Is it on par with the first film? What do you have to say? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys have enjoyed this video, help me out by hitting the little thumbs up button. Really good for the algorithm. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars-related content, don't forget to click subscribe. Help me get to my end of a goal of 10,000 subscribers. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Hearfield, and I'll see you next time.